Welcome to this webinar series. This is the third of the suicide prevention series, and we have with us eminent panel and blend of different specialities with us. Um, and Today we'll be discussing about this suicide prevention, mainly aimed at public awareness. So it's a very sensitive topic. Nobody wants to talk about suicide. We know that. So any anything that we are discussing, even if it looks like exaggeration, it's more towards aimed towards public awareness and not sensationalizing things. So with this brief background, I'll also say to the participants that please can you put your questions in the Q&A section and any comments in the chat box. Dr. Rukshida will be introducing all the main panelists. With us we got Dr. Mahesh, Mr. Ganeshan also. So with this brief background, I'll hand it over to Dr. Rukshida. Dr. Rukshida is a consultant psychiatrist. She needs no introduction. She has been doing lots of public awareness programs and does a lot of online consultations as well. She's a well-known figure and a eminent psychiatrist from Mumbai. Over to you, Dr. Uksheda.
Thank you, Dr. Vijay. It's a privilege and an honor to be here today. Like you just said, that one of my biggest passions has always been public awareness, and that first started at during my residency at KEM. So that's the reason I'm especially happy to introduce today to this panel the very fabulous Dr. Shubhangi Parkar. Not only is she my teacher and everything that I don't know about psychiatry, poor woman really tried very hard to teach me. But she has a PhD on suicide. So my interest on not only just in public awareness, but in suicide came from her and the love that she has for the subject. And also, apart from being the just formerly ex HOD and professor at KEM Hospital and GS State Medical College in Mumbai, apart from teaching us the love for life and teaching how to care and be empathetic towards human beings, she's always also inculcated familiarity and cohabitation with animals. So even today, she has her cat with us for during this panel. So she would always have either her pet dog or a pet cat. So Dr. Shubhangi Parkar, welcome, ma'am. It's an honor to have you today on this panel.
Hello.
We also have with us Dr. Suresh Badamat. He's a really sweet person, very good friend, and he's a professor at NIMHANS at Bangalore, and he's our go-to guy for everything forensic and scuba diving. Anytime that we have an issue in terms of we trying to understand what the medical legal issues might be, and especially now he's one of our favorite people to be around because he's pioneered telemedicine and especially telepsychiatry in India, and all of us, because of the pandemic, have now switched to virtual sessions, isn't it? So he's our go-to guy. Suresh, welcome. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. Suresh, you need to unmute yourself. I promise you I'm not the only one who's going to talk today. Also on the panel, and we are very excited about it, and me especially, and all the people that I've spoken to, we have the fabulous, the very talented, the very funny Jose. Jose, thank you so much for being here. I know you want us to say to everybody that you're an ex-television celebrity, an ex-radio celebrity, and currently you're unemployed on the internet. But if that's what unemployment looks like, we're very happy. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here so I can maybe learn something from you guys. Thank you so much for having me on.
We know that your time's very special, and I also know that you're very happy to join us, because when you got to know that this is today, 10th September, is the World Suicide Prevention Day. So it's really nice, and we would definitely want to teach you a lot, because like I just said earlier to you, that we want other people to learn vicariously through you, and lending your voice to this such an important topic, and it's such an less talked about topic. So we definitely
Absolutely.
want to elevate the discussion in normal regular people, and that's precisely what this seminar and today's webinar is for. Apart from other all webinars, we don't have slides, we don't have presentations, we're just going to have a nice discussion. So let me start off today by just kind of like taking a pause and remembering that every 40 seconds there is one person dying of suicide. That's 28 people in a day at least, and that's in India. So, Dr. Parker, let me start off with you, and if you could just give us a brief kind of outline in terms of what is the Indian scenario, what kind of or the people that we're losing by suicide, which is such a preventable death, and it's such a huge public health issue. Can you give us a little bit of an overview of what we are dealing with today in India?
Yes. First thing which we must say that suicide and suicidal behavior is a major public health problem. And around the world also, approximately 8 lakh people commit suicide every year. In India, this year, total 1,39,123 suicide. There is a slight increase, that is 3.4% compared to last year, and it is increased in union territories like Andaman Nicobar, Sikkim, Pondicherry, and even in the states there is an increased trend, especially in Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, West Bengal, Madhya Pradesh, and Karnataka. And by age wise, again, it is the group of 18 to 30 and 30 to 45% together. They contribute a little bit more than 60% of the suicide totally. Male to female ratio, male is a predominant contributor to suicide, and that is 70 to 30. And out of that, housewives, basically are much more. Besides that, there are 53 mega cities, have the increased trends in the country. Amongst them, Chennai, Delhi, Mumbai, and Bengaluru are the leading cities. And suicide in education wise is seen more in the matriculate and secondary level education, which is much more higher, which is important. And in the causes, the family problems and illness are very predominant causes. Of course, then there are causes like unemployment and so many other. Profession wise, what we can see is that daily wage earners are the highest contributory, and following housewives, that is 15.4%. So this is a very important perspective. Also, we must know that divorced widowed people at higher risk. Amongst the housewives, marriage related problems are more contributing, and associated with it, of course, dowry related problems, and that's where we have to be careful again. The most common methods which are being reported in this current report by NCRB is hanging, almost 53%. Then comes, of course, the organophosphorus poisoning, drowning, and self-immolation. So that is a kind of scenario today. And as they say, that for one suicide, generally all over the world, commonly 10 to 20 times of that attempt suicide. So here our ratio is for one suicide around 15 suicide attempts. But we must also remember that in country like ours, where for a one person, if we count 5 to 6 people affected by individual suicidal behavior, they may be family or friend. So the whole horizon of the suicide, a lot of sufferings are seen there.
Thank you very much, Dr. Parker. And Jose, I'm just going to bring you over now. You just heard Dr. Parker also saying that the largest demographic in India, which is the youth from age 14 to 35, and we're losing them at an alarming speed to death by suicide. So it's clear that, every one of us, directly or indirectly, is touched by depression and suicide. And you being such a voice for the youth and everything as well, what do you think? Do we talk about it enough? And if we do talk about it, what are we really saying about mental health? And if we don't talk about it, what do you think is going on? Why aren't we talking about this more? Why isn't like even now normalized in our everyday life?
When we were younger, I mean, we wouldn't even talk to our parents about anything really. Those relationships, I don't think were that strong. But I think there is so much pressure in the educational system, at least in my time, and I'm sure it still continues. That pressure from family, pressure from society, pressure from the institutions itself. You're worried what's going to happen with your future. So I can totally understand students going through that kind of pressure. I can relate also because I definitely used to feel like that. I hated school. I hated college. I just didn't want to. It was so mentally exhausting, and on top of all that, then you're worried that your mom and dad are also going to be upset with you. You know what I mean? So I can completely relate, and I think some students don't like talking about these things because for various reasons, I'm guessing. I mean, some might find it boring, some might just find it embarrassing. People don't like to show that they're feeling low or things like that. So yeah, definitely something needs to be done about our educational system, the kind of pressure it puts on the people who are going through it.
Yeah, I think, Jose, you brought in a very good point. And, while we're talking about authority and authority figures in our life, Dr. Suresh Paramath, I would want to ask you, previously there was, apart from the stigma of suicide, there's always also fear of, every suicidal attempt, every person that we've tried to save from suicide now then needs to get reported to the police. And that's the reason there was so much of underreporting and hiding and not talking about it. So does that section of the IPC, the 309, I think that's what it was, correct me if I'm wrong, is it still there? Is it squashed? How active is it? Can you shed some light on that?
Yeah, Rukshita, thank you for having me on this show. The first and the foremost, usually our Indian Penal Code has been drafted by Lord Macaulay in 18th century, 1852 somewhere. During that time, they brought this concept of attempted suicide is a punishable offense. So we did not change. Actually, the Britishers have changed that, but we continue to hold this, telling that whoever attempts suicide should be punished. That means, imagine, if you complete the suicide, nothing can be done because you're no more there. But you attempt and you fail, you'll be punished. That is, the punishment is 1 year imprisonment with or without fine. This was the issue. So imagine somebody has attempted and failed and is admitted for treatment. The police will come and say, boss, you have attempted. Now you will be arrested. So that was the case till 2017. So in 2017, a new legislation came in that is called as Mental Health Care Act. In Mental Health Care Act, Section 115 clearly said that whoever attempts suicide shall not be punished and it will be considered as a stress. And it is only because of stress they have attempted. But however, if the police is able to prove the contrary, that he is trying to manipulate the system, then it is Section 309 will hold good. But otherwise, by default, it is considered as by stress he has attempted. So he should require, not only that, this act also said that the state government should make arrangements for treatment, for care, for rehabilitation, so that the recurrence of the suicide should not occur. That means earlier, the law before 2017 was very clearly, it said that we will punish him. But after 2017, that is Mental Health Care Act, it clearly said that we should not punish them. He requires care and rehabilitation. There is a paradigm shift has occurred now. So earlier it was like, if I'm giving treatment for a person who has attempted and he says, please don't tell anybody, I was in a dilemma. Should I tell the police or not? If he dies, Then there was a case against the doctor also. You tried to treat a person without informing the police. So that was a dilemma for a care provider and also the caretaker, the person who seeks help. Both were in problem. But now no such problems are there. Now it is what we call it as decriminalized to some extent. And it is, I think it's a more a person help seeking friendly. That is the way it has been now, Rukshada.
Thank you very much, Suresh. I think that's very reassuring for a whole lot of us out there, whether we are health professionals or parents and teachers and just regular people. So, Dr. Parker, now that Suresh has mentioned that helping somebody recover from a suicidal attempt, or so it's easier. They've decriminalized suicidal attempts. So, can you please tell us? Can you please tell the people that who are listening out there, what are the warning signs? What can we look for when we are, if I'm feeling suicidal or have suicidal thoughts, or somebody that I care about may be going through? What should I look for?
Yeah, it's a very important to know the warning signs for a simple purpose that we can, identify immediate risk. And this is what is very important. So there are different warning signs. Basically, when we talk about suicide, a common warning sign signs are talking about suicide threats. For example, making statements such as, I am going to kill myself, wish I were dead, or I wish I hadn't been born. Okay, there are direct threats, there are indirect threats. Okay, but then there is a preoccupation with death. Okay, and this is sometimes subtle, like making final arrangement. I have seen many of my patients, with the serious suicide, and doing the final arrangement, winding up the situation, giving away prized possessions, talking about death again, reading or writing about death. I remember a patient who was a month before just reading obituaries, and this is a very important. Then basically they also do what is important is change in the behavior, which you can observe. They may not talk about it, but they suddenly, who are very social but get isolated, they are socially withdrawn. They just don't enjoy being around with people, less involvement in their original interests and activities, increased risk taking behavior, which is very important for us to know, heavy use of alcohol or drugs, which is maybe the part of it for relieving that anxiety of emotional turmoil happening inside. Then there are, of course, physical condition, like a very neat person start looking, very shabby. So there are abrupt changes in the appearance, not caring for how they look, recent weight or appetite changes, which probably come because of underlying mental illnesses, sleeplessness or excessive sleepiness, lethargy, and exhaustion, which is a very important perspective, change in normal routine, including eating habits. Okay, feeling trapped or feeling hopeless or desperate about situation. I mean, they just keep talking about desperate feeling, inability to concentrate or think rationally. They are, have exaggerated fears of disease. There is low self-esteem, feeling of hopelessness or helplessness, increased irritability or anger is seen in these people. There is extreme anxiety also is seen, and feeling panicky. And very often there is, discussion around intolerable loss. Okay, this is something, loss maybe in terms of the human beings, or maybe the status loss, whatever, but then they are just going around with the whole concept of intolerable loss, and having mood swings, emotionally high, low at a time. So these are some of the changes which probably one needs to observe over the time.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Suresh, now that we kind of have like an understanding of what we might look for, what do you suggest when you talk to people, regular people, not health professionals, when somebody is, you've noticed somebody going through these patterns of changes in behavior or thought or, making plans or self-isolating, or somebody who's gone through like a recent loss of some kind, financial or personal, what should one do? What can one do?
Yeah, Rukshida, I think, see, in prevention of suicide, every citizen has a role to play. It's not just a doctor or a psychiatrist or a mental health professional. It is everybody's responsibility. For example, we do something called as first aid. Imagine a person has fell down, and as another citizen who knows about first aid, we go and give physical first aid. Similarly, there is something called as psychological first aid, or else there is something called as training of gatekeeper for suicide prevention. That means, imagine if I'm going on the road and I find my friend who is slightly down. You should talk to him and ask him, "What, I'm concerned about you. Look down." Try to persuade him. And if you come to know that there is a life event or there are some warning signs are there, talk to him directly and ask him, "Are you planning for any committing suicide? Are you planning to end your life? Is there any something coming up like that?" Or you so directly asking him gives a window of opportunity to do intervention. Earlier, the people were very apprehensive. If I ask, I'm pushing him to suicide. That's not the way, because the research clearly says that asking, because the person, if I'm the person who wants to commit suicide, I'm worried. If I tell him, what will he think? That I'm so weak, and how the person will react. So he does not want to tell. So best is to ask. The reason being is the asking gives a window of opportunity. One, the suicide is a desperate attempt for help. It's a cry for help, actually. So we should make all out attempts to talk to them, engage them, pursue them, and to take treatment or a referral. So there are various reasons for suicide. So mental health issues are one of them. See, the moment, see, it comes and goes, actually. These are all waves of suicidal, what we call it as a mood which comes like, I want to kill myself. So that moment, if we are able to pass that phase, that person will live. There are many instances, the people who have overcome this wave, they are able to lead a normal life actually. So if we are able to ask, that is basically inquire proactively, A. B, persuade them to take treatment or help to disclose if there is anything going in their mind. Third one is, if there is any issue, please make sure that they are on treatment. Please do not stop treatment. This is a very important point. The reason is there is a stigma going around in the society stopping the medication. Once they stop the medication, if there is a depression, if there is hypertension, any illness, name the illness, the sudden stoppage of medicine will cause a rebound illness, which will be very severe. And if it is a mental health issue, it will not affect him, it will affect the whole family. So without the doctor's opinion, please don't stop medicine. It has become a fashion to say, do ABCD, you will be all right. No, this is a medical emergency. Suicidal attempt is a medical emergency. It has to be taken seriously, because if somebody has an heart attack, you will not go and say that, okay, do stop all medicine. You have to be strong. You have a heart attack. Your heart should be strong. Nobody says that. Here also, a person whose will is broken, he requires help. We need to move forward and help them. That's what I would like to say, Rukshita.
Thank you, Suresh. I think that was very lucidly put together. Jose, now that we're talking about suicide being a medical emergency and how we need to look at mental health and suicide and depression from a health perspective. Where do you think the media can help? You're part of the media and you've crossed all different mass media. You've conquered all of them. Where do you think you guys can help us?
Oh my gosh, do you have 25 hours?
I'll give you
The
2
media,
minutes.
yeah. So the media is used to sensationalizing things for TRPs, etc. If we could have more discussions like this, very, very frankly, on national news, and to sensitize people instead of having them just go crazy and ranting about stuff. And to be very honest, in the past, literally in the past 10 minutes, I've learned more about this than I have learned in my entire life. There have been, like Dr. Suresh said, there have been so many instances where you've seen the signs, but you're not sure, you don't know, or you've experienced it, but you're like, कुछ कर सकता है, नहीं कर सकता है, and then people prefer to stay away from, you know, getting embroiled in messes and stuff like that. So extremely enlightening. I think the media could be, I mean, it's like the understatement of the year. The media can be far more sensitive to the actual subject at hand, but sadly our media is mostly chasing after TRPs, so it's not really I don't think it's on an agenda. So thank God for the internet and sessions like this.
Suresh, you wanted to say something.
The Jose have made the very important point, and I would like to add on to that. See, in the 17th century, there was a novel. I think there is a novel written by Goethe. In that, there is a sorrow of the main character in that novel. What he does, Werther. What he does is, when his love refuses him to accept him, so he kills himself by a pistol. So immediately after that novel was released, there was many suicides occurred after reading that novel. Similarly, there are many movies when there is a love failure and the movie ends with the hero committing suicide. So that will have an impact on the many youngsters who are following those heroes and who think that that is the best way of life, and sensationalizing, of course, and also modeling them. It becomes a big effect that is called as Werther effect, or also called as copycat suicide. It also been very well established that is called as contagious suicide. That means if a well-known figure commits suicide, there will be a series of suicide occurring, and that Werther effect is one which the media should decrease it. But at the same time, there is another side of the coin: properly presenting a suicidal attempt and giving the coping skills and telling them, no, this is not the way to deal life. There are ways to take help. So if there is a suicide reporting is done in a proper, responsible way by the media, the suicide rate decreases. That is called as Papageno effect, actually. That is also from a French, I think one of the Mozarato there in the play. There, a person, again, a love rejects him, and he wants to commit suicide. There are three boys who comes and says, hey, suicide is not the answer. The answer is living life for your love. So that drama actually helped many people not to commit suicide. So this is very interesting phenomena. So the media should do a responsible, because there are two issues now. One is the mainstream media and another one is social media. See, we are trying to control the mainstream media, but the social media has gone haywire. So it's every citizen's responsibility to make sure that suicide is not the answer. The answer is coping with the difficulties. That's what we have to teach. And also, it's very common for our children to ask, what will you do after you pass the exam? Instead of that, the first question should be, if you fail in the exam, what will you do? How will you cope? If your friend fails, what will you do? How will you talk to him? How will you help him to come out of those problems? That problem solving skills we are not teaching to our children. So that's somewhere that media has to play a major role, because in movies we have to discuss these issues and bring about telling that that's not the answer. So there a responsible role is there. And AIIMS New Delhi has come up with, I think 1 week back, one interesting study which told that 85% of our media reported the celebrity suicide in a very wrong way, and it may have an effect. Thank you, Rukshida.
Jose, you want to jump in and kind of contribute a little bit more in terms of what do you think from a social media point of view, and how do you think you can help, or people like you who have such a flair for turning reality into humor and making it more acceptable, how do you think humor and your brand of entertainment can not only normalize talking about mental health and health-seeking behavior, but also elevate, like I said earlier, the discussion into where it becomes almost 1 + 1 = 2.
So to be very honest, I am, like I said, I'm the least experienced person over here. I try my best to put out fun content and make people laugh. So I guess everybody, if you can affect your radius as much as possible in the way that you can. I mean, the worst thing would be someone like me trying to pretend that I'm some kind of expert on suicide prevention and then give people bad information. So I stick to doing what I know really well, which is hopefully making fun content. But there are comedians who are very good at also tackling these subjects. Maybe I'll find some way to incorporate it or use it in my content. But for example, like Daniel Fernandez, I know he's done a stand-up set purely on mental health. It's a brilliant set, and it brings out a lot of the hypocrisy and a lot of the different ways society deals with things. But I like you said, I think normalizing talking about it would be the most important thing. I remember many years ago, nobody, I mean, it would be unheard of to tell my family that hey, you know what, I think I want to go meet a psychiatrist and just have a chat and find out what's going on to me. They'd be like, "Arey, kyun? You can just figure it out. Idhar hi kuch, just relax, go for a run or something." People would say stuff like that. But today, I genuinely, I do find there is a shift where people are happy to discuss that. At least within my circle, we have a long way to go, of course, I'm sure. But I feel like psychiatrists are now being seen as more of a more approachable and less of a taboo as such as it used to be before. But to answer your question, I think normalizing talking about it just like this would be the best thing to do.
And maybe heckling one of those anchors who are being vociferous about the negatives and the way they're, like pulling them up when they're doing a bad job.
Of course. I mean, we all have a duty as citizens to keep an eye on the news. I mean, especially when they go crazy. So, I mean, we're living in very strange times now. So I honestly, I'm confused as well. So that's why I came here to maybe make some sense of what is going on.
Yeah, I can contribute. Like just yesterday, I unfriended a person who's also a medical professional, unfortunately, because he put up this picture of one person dying of suicide. And I kept repeatedly telling him that you need to delete this post, remove that picture, don't talk about the method of suicide, because, and he didn't respond and he didn't respond. So I unfriended him. So that took a little bit of kind of like courage to make a stand as well. Of course, it's not that big a deal. Having said that, yeah, I mean, we all have to pitch in, isn't it? Dr. Parker?
True, because asking about suicide will often reduce the anxiety, surrounding that particular choking feeling, that emotional turmoil. And when we ask, the patient may feel relieved that, oh, somebody is asking and I probably need to express. So this can be better, understanding for them to think in a different way, to think in terms of the coping mechanism. But when these people come, see, these are a very important perspective. I had been in a huge medical college with undergraduate and postgraduate people, and I'm telling you about not only just the clients which are common, but so many medical students coming. And I'll tell you, I learned it in a very hard way, because I have seen very brilliant students, feeling suicidal, and I thought that they are not the one, they are tough candidate. And eventually in the process we have lost one or two students. And then I learned a lifetime lesson that if somebody, is showing those warning symptoms, we have to, whosoever they are, they can be doctor, non-doctors, whosoever, we have to take them seriously, which is a very important. Eventually I realized that medical profession people are much more having the stress of the competition, the stress of being perfectionist, stress of demand, stress of the professional demands. So there is a stress there, and we really need to take into account that. So first thing, what I would say is taking action is always the best choice for us. When somebody comes, instead of just thinking that next time we will say no, to find out whether that person is in danger of acting on suicidal feeling, so that immediate risk which we have to find out, warning signs which we have to identify. Don't leave the person alone. Now this is a very important perspective. In the many colleges in Mumbai, or even in the medical, the first thing which we have taken care of is giving responsibility to somebody, to be with this person, or that person is not alone in such a crucial emotional turmoil time. Okay, then encourage person and caretaker for help. So improving help seeking behavior, because they probably start believing that this probably will go away automatically, this feeling will vanish away. No, I think here we have to emphasize the need of help seeking, offer support and reassurance. And the reassurance is a simple thing, basically telling them that things will change. because the person who comes generally have a very restricted vision, because they at the end of tunnel they see problem only, and we have to probably tell them that things will change as the time will pass. At the same time, we have to assess the resources of the people. Basically, very often some of these patients, when they come, they don't even let us know who can be helpful, but we have to really find out who are the resources, who are the key people who probably will be helpful in this particular procedure, and professional approach. I think we have to tell them that they need to, professionally approach the people. So improve help seeking, I would say, get the treatment. Tell them to get the treatment, without feeling of the stigma. And in suicide, the stigma is much more. Somebody who feels suicide, people start thinking very wrongly about it, wrongly about their problems also. Ask them to establish support network to reach out, which is very important. In the students, I find this is a very helpful thing. Feeling connected with some of this support network is very important. And telling people that the suicide feelings probably are temporary. They are not going to be there throughout the lifetime, and that's the reason why we have to take the step of being much more sufficient, or develop coping styles, and find out support at the time when they feel vulnerable. So this is what I would like to do.
Yes, Dr. Parker, thank you very much. I think, just to sum it up, that when somebody does come in by themselves or with somebody else for suicidal thoughts, as psychiatrists and mental health services, we are going to try and figure out what are the other symptoms, what may be the, biological disorders behind this particular symptom of suicidal idea. And we're not only going to take care of that and cure them, treat them with medications and by other modalities, but we also have to then, plan ahead that, okay, now that this person is going to get better, and when we kind of the rehabilitation, the peer group and the support group. Dr. Suresh, I'm going to round back to you, but before that, I'm just going to, bring in Jose again, because when Dr. Parker brought up the point about peers, and we know for a fact that we are losing so many medical professionals and students and young medical doctors to suicide as well, but we're also losing a lot of people from the media and the entertainment industry. So Jose, especially in the last couple of months, we've seen a spate of suicides by people connected to your industry. What do you think now is the attitude about, regarding mental health and taking help from people? A, B, because your job per se is so you're as good as your last hit, or how many views do you get, and how many followers do you have? And also, you're always heckled and trolled. So there's so many kind of pressures on somebody from your media. What do you think? How do you think your peers are handling it? What would you tell them if they were listening? What would you want to tell them? And how do you think maybe you can also teach all of us how to handle trolls and hecklers?
Oh my gosh. I feel like the pandemic has kind of complicated things as well. As it is, people who feel like that feel isolated, and then this sort of isolation of being you're forced to stay away from other people and stay at home. So I guess it makes that tougher for them to reach out as well. Apart from you wanting to reach out to other people as well. And media jobs, I'm not in the news business, but news is extremely stressful. I know of a lot of young reporters who've gone through the system and come out hassled and just so tired and exhausted mentally, and definitely have had to deal with forms of depression after that. It's that kind of business, and nobody cares. Everybody just wants to run for those TRPs. And I think the younger reporters are affected more because they're young. They don't have that experience. The older reporters who've got through it have gone through the fire. They know, and they're ready to just brush things off. But I feel like younger reporters, apart from reporters, a lot of my younger life was when I was working with MTV. We would travel to colleges, campuses where students live on campus, And when you see the way students live on campus and deal with their daily lives, it's you only know what they're going through if you go there and you spend time with them and you see what they're going through. They're completely isolated from their families. They don't have the luxury of calling their families and saying ki mama ये subject में कम marks मिलने वाले. They'll be like मार डालेंगे तुमको. It's that kind of pressure. And then on college campuses and stuff, again, being isolated in your own rooms, there are not too many people. They have their small circles of friends. Who knows what is going on over there? So I think I remember thinking about this, that all my time and spending time in colleges, I used to think, man, this is a hard life. And I did college here, living at home, going to National College Hill Road, coming back is very easy as well. Very lucky to be in that scenario. So I think some of these areas need to be definitely looked at. And when it comes to trolling and comments and stuff, I can tell you that I've taken some of that trolling and converted it into content and stuff. But I can, like, somebody had asked me once, are you ever affected by the comments? I think Abhish Matthew asked me, are you affected by the comments? And I can tell you that I am definitely affected by comments. Some of the nastiest comments you'll find on social media, and I consider myself to be extremely like a duck, and the comments are water. So I consider myself to be that kind of person, but it still affects me. I'm telling you, you'll get thousands of positive comments, and it's a weird phenomenon. Maybe one of the doctors here can help me understand it, but you'll get thousands of positive comments, but your mind will focus only on that one negative comment that they send you. I've sometimes spent half a day thinking about it, and then at the end of it, I'm like, man, I just wasted my whole day thinking about some guy who was probably on the bathroom on the pot and decided to comment that on my video. You know what I mean? So social media, double-edged sword. It can really help, and at the same time, it can be extremely nasty and vicious. We definitely have a problem, and I guess we moved ahead so fast with technology that human beings are still like, we're not exactly sure. The technology seems to have evolved faster than us, and it's becoming its own beast.
Suresh, I want you to jump in quickly and tell us, I know we have questions for you, and we'll get back to that. Just because we were talking about trolling and heckling and that one bad remark or review, and now that a lot of the doctors practically have gone into virtual clinics, so there is now, more written about them on the internet as well. So just like Jose is trying to, highlight that there might be 100 positives, but that one negative is going to really nag you and bother you. What are your points in terms of how can one handle it? A professional, maybe like a doctor, a professional, maybe like an entertainer like Jose, and also like a regular person who might not have that emotional distancing from somebody, who's been bullying them on the internet. Some maybe quick tips on that.
Yeah, the Jose has brought an important point. He made in the start only, he made media is a double-edged sword. So imagine if your child is going to play with the knife, what you're going to tell? You'll tell it may cut you. Similarly, if you're going to use social media, you have to educate your child. What are the possibilities? You may become famous, but at the same time, the jo hai naam wala wahi badnaam hai. So that means if you're going to be famous, there are people who will be they'll be trolling. Just see, you need not have enemies. Be successful, you will have enemies. That's the way the life is. So you have to teach them there are good things will be there. There are bad things. You choose good things. The knife is there. Knife is to cut the vegetables, not to cut other people. Similarly, here in the social media, choose the best thing, not the worst thing. Don't go behind TPR. What the Jose is doing is an amazing, what we call it as the best defense mechanism, humor. So teach humor to everyone. That's the way we have to go. If somebody is going to comment on me, make it a humor and just pass it off. That's we have to learn, because I'm a doctor. I'm sitting in my OPD. Today, I'm going to see something around 100 patients. In that, 40 will say, Aap Bhagwan hai. 40. Okay. Another 40 will say, no comments. Yeah, another doctor maine paise diya, dekh liya. Another 20 may even try to assault me. That doesn't mean that I'm a bad person. There are 80 people has benefited, but the 20 people may create trouble in you when you go back to home. So learn to unburden your mind when you're going back home, because you're going to meet your family. So at that time, the 20 patients should not think that, oh, I am a bad doctor. That should be moved out of my mind. I did my best. I'm here to provide care, not cure. So that kind of thinking change has to occur. So that if we are able to teach our kids or the medical students or the person who's going to take into social media, I think that makes a huge difference. Rukshida.
So Suresh, thank you very much for those, help, and maybe we'll try and like follow all of your advice and teach our kids as well. A couple of questions that kept coming back again, maybe they missed out on your previous explanation, was again the matter of a medical legal case when somebody, a doctor, not necessarily a psychiatrist, like a regular general physician or family physician or somebody at the emergency center who's helping the person with the self-harm that they've come in with. And you've said that, it's not criminalized, but do they still have to make an MLC? If you don't make an MLC, how does the police kind of like handle it? And how are you, what are you supposed to respond to, and how are you supposed to respond to? So there were a couple of questions again there. If you can just again give us a quick answer to that.
Yeah, thank you, Rukshida. I think this is a very important question. Many doctors do ask this. See, when I'm on duty, whenever the patient has attempted suicide, lands in front of me, first thing I will see is he medically stable? He's going to die. Forget about all the procedure. Try to save him. Article 21 of Constitution of India clearly says right to life. Jo bhi aap karenge to save his life, no law will come in between you and him. But okay, if he is not stable, please go ahead, start treatment. Forget about everything. That will help you. A. B, he's stable. There is no death, so there is no vital stables, no problem, nothing is there. Talk to him, ask him what was the reason for committing, document it. But sir, ye dono bhi pata nahi hai, I don't know, I'm in doubt. Whenever you are in doubt, register medical legal case. What is registering? There is a MLC register. Tell the CMO if you are in a big hospital, that is a casualty medical officer. Sir, ye thoda doubtful case hai, please register MLC. So whenever you're doubtful, go for MLC. And whenever the person is severely ill and they requires medical treatment, don't wait for any procedure. Go ahead, start treatment. That's very, very essential. So that's the way I would rather go. And if you're in doubtful, go ahead and register MLC. एक MLC file उधर मतलब आपका वो पर्ची भेजना है और MLC document करना है. ज़्यादा नहीं है. You don't get into the trouble of doing, not doing. Just if you are in doubtful, go ahead and do MLC. But please start the treatment. Don't delay. If there is a death occur, see, if the person survives, there is no legal issue at all. He will tell to the police. If he dies and you are waiting for whether ye karna hai, nahi karna hai, those administrative issues mein mat padiye. You are a doctor. You have to go and treat. That's my first duty. So the treatment first. Second, of course, if you are in doubt, register MLC. MLC is आपको police station जाना जरूरी नहीं है. You have to. There is a CMO. If he is in the hospital, you can tell them and do it. That's what is my response, Rukshida.
Thank you very much, Suresh. Dr. Parker, would you want to add something to what Suresh said?
Yeah, I think what he says is important because we come from the hospital, which is a general, and there are so many patients which come. The first, because all of them, they come in the emergency. So I think the emergency medicine is the only key there. Okay, all other things probably will be there. In KM, there are, of course, police around. And because they are trained, eventually they are helpful. But the treatment is a very, very important. But at the same time, what I would advise, which I keep advising our medical AMOs, is please keep documenting what's happening. Now, this is a very important treat, but the law is little ruthless when it comes to the doctors. Okay, so in such a situation, we have to do our duty of saving the patient, but at the same time, documenting everything is something which one should be doing. That's what I believe. Yeah, and it's important. It saves a lot of us little later.
Thank you very much. I think the discussion can go on and on, but we are reaching at the end of the event today. I would really like each of you all to share something personal maybe and leave a message for all of us out there who may be struggling, who may be wanting to know how to help somebody who's struggling, whether they're regular people, whether they're doctors and other health professionals. Dr. Parker, we'll start with you, and then Suresh, and then Jose.
Yeah, I generally give message to my clients who are suicidal. The same message I would give because I like that message. When they say this trouble has created the hassle, and I say, but there are millions of the people are living in the world, and some of them are living happily with the same problem. So life is beautiful.
So essentially, we all might be in the same storm and in different boats, but we're still all together. Suresh,
Okay.
something you want to
Yeah,
share?
I would.
Message that
Yeah,
you
I
want
would. Yeah, thank you, Rukshita. So, to my friends, whoever doctors are there or whoever is in the IT industry or in the media, see, there are two things of looking at every problem. One is, why me? Mujhe kyun? Instead of that, change your thinking process. Try me. You want to give whatever problems, let it give. I will come stronger. I will become more and more stronger. See, even the gold which has to become 24 karat, it has to go through the beatings. Then only it becomes pure. Nobody will question the charcoal quality. They will question the quality of the gold. So if you are a gold, people will ask you, people will test you. That's the way life is. Please accept it. Please move ahead. So instead of asking why me, try me is the best, and you will become more successful. That is the way life is. That's go ahead and live life.
Thank you so much, Suresh. Live life. That's easy enough, and that can be difficult. But trust me, with practice, it gets easier. Jose, something from you, please.
So I just want to say thank you to all of you guys. I learned so much over here, especially and from simple things like what do you do when you find out that someone is suicidal, and such a great point, because I'm sure a lot of people think, oh no, maybe I shouldn't go close to this person. Maybe I might trigger something. So I think the point that Dr. Suresh had made, which was you open up a window of opportunity to try to help that person. I think that's some great advice over there. Something I try to do in my daily life and around over here. I mean, it's tough. We all have our bad days, but I try to surround myself with as much positivity as possible. And this is especially for social media because I mean, anyone from anywhere can say anything to you, and it's not an ideal situation. And there's so much of negativity on social media. I think I did this a little while back, is that I unfollowed everybody from all my social media because there's so much and everyone's opinions being bombarded at you. And I'm sorry to those people, but you should take your own mental health very, very seriously. So I think that uh, try to consume more things you love as opposed to complaining about more things you hate. I find that kind of works. It's easier said than done, no doubt about it, because we're surrounded by stuff. The news media is shoving it down our throats a lot of the time. So I think that's the very little that I can add is try to laugh and live life as much as possible. Surround yourself with as much positivity as possible. Clean up your social media.
Thank you, Jose. Thank you very much. Those are really pearls of wisdom. I know you want to keep reminding us that we are old people here and you're the only one young, but there is a lot of
No, I'm in
wisdom.
my 60s now. I
We're
just
counting
look like
dog
this.
years,
It's a
is it?
filter.
Thank you
Snapchat
so
filter.
much. Thank you so much, Jose.
Thank you for having me.
I would like to add one thing. When the going gets tough, only the tough get going. So you have to be mentally tough. And if you're mentally tough, nothing can harm you. So I mean, life is going to throw a lot of challenges on you. Life is not going to be easy, but that doesn't mean you have to give up. You got to be tough.
So
I'm so
thank
sorry
you.
to jump in, Rukshit. I'm so sorry to jump in. Someone mentioned in the YouTube chat, someone mentioned saying that maybe we should normalize failure in schools also. And it really resonated with me because I remember how terrified I was of failing in school. I was worried ki baap re, father ko remark book dega and you have to go to the principal's office. And I was actually more terrified of my mom throwing a chappals at me. So, that normalizing failure, I think is a really, I still sometimes have dreams that I'm failing in exams and all. Mera khatam ho gaya. Education, I'm still dreaming ki main fail ho raha exam mein and all. So, I mean, it really, that really says something about the kind of pressure that we go through in our younger days.
So on that point, I'm going to embarrass my teacher again by reminding her that I was very busy one day and I didn't have time to study for an exam that she wanted to give. So I didn't take the exam. And because I bunked that exam, she gave me a memo. Now, when we talk about, I'm like infamous in the department. I'm the first person and only one of two people who she ever gave a memo to. Then when we talked, the other doctor said, you know, we talked about resilience. Resilience is a brain, resilience is a brain function, right? When the when it gets tough, you get tougher. So the way I looked at it, and you know, another page from Jose as well, turn it into humor. I will never let my teacher live it down. And that's one of the highlights of my career, that I was the first one to get a memo. So we are using humor. We are also kind of like,
Oh, she
you
was
know,
very happy.
She's getting back to you, ma'am.
No, no.
well, I enjoyed the infamy, so that made me resilient, and I still love and respect her, and I know she loves she loves me dearly as well. So you know, just before we go out, a quick recap on World Suicide Prevention Day. Like Madam before was also saying that it's you know, one day we are taking to highlight, to increase awareness, to spread the word, but this noise cannot die down. The voices need to continue talking about saving lives. We need to understand psychiatry and mental health. These are medical conditions, medical systems. And if there's something wrong, you must go out and take help. Suicidal ideas and suicidal behavior especially can be is a medical emergency, and you know, you do need to take care of yourself at that time. People, all of us, just how we've learned mental you know, first aid at school, and we know what to do when somebody gets a cut, or somebody gets a bee sting, or somebody gets an electric shock. We must also learn how to do first aid in terms of mental health, so that if I need mental health for myself, I can do at least the first aid, and then maybe reach out to a psychiatrist like Dr. Parker or Dr. Suresh. You know, listening to Jose and, you know, seeing his memes and his videos can be a very positive thing for me on a daily basis, that I might use for my everyday lifestyle, for my mental health activities. But if I am having suicidal ideas, there may be a syndrome behind it, like depression or something else that requires medical treatment with medications, therapy, and other modalities as well. So here's a plea from all of us, from the panel here today and from Telearogya. Stay healthy, stay safe. If you ever find yourself in danger from a physical or a mental health threat, please take medical advice. Don't let stigma, shame, fear keep you away from living a healthy life. And with this, I'm going to say thank you so much again to my wonderful panelists. And it was a wonderful 1 hour that I spent with you guys. And I'm hoping that a lot of people out there heard us and will continue to hear us. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you, doctors.
Yeah, on behalf Jose, our guest of honor, thank you very much. It's been pleasure having you, and it was very fruitful. And Dr. Parker, Dr. Suresh, and Dr. Ruksheda, you conducted so well. Thank you very much, one and all. Thank you. Most importantly, I have to thank all the participants who have taken time and came and stayed with us and listened to all what's going on and contributing to the discussion. Thank you very much, all the participants. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Ganeshan, for supporting us. Thank you, Mahesh, and all support team. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Shubhratri.
Bye.
Good night. Good night, everyone.
Bye. Good